Thrilled to have Frank Stallone on the podcast today. Full disclosure, almost exactly 2 years ago today, Frank and I met in LA. He invited me to his show at the historic Herb Albert's Vibrato Grill. I was really curious, so I came by and checked out the show. First off, the place was sold out wall to wall. Italians all over the place. You couldn't move without bumping into somebody who looked like they were a cast member of The Sopranos. The show itself was like a bouquet of Sinatra style, big band, pop standards, iconic soundtrack hits. There was an entire acoustic portion where you played some originals and then you played a Gordon Lightfoot cover.
Oh, yeah.
And then there were the stories and the songs in between. And it was just, I don't think people have any idea what a great entertainer, what a consummate showman you are. Have you always been this comfortable in front of people, Frank?
Oh, yes. I say it in the documentary. I mean, some people are born to do certain things. This was my destiny. This was my muse. This is what I was supposed to do because I'm so comfortable with it. I'm much more comfortable with that than being off stage. And I'm very comfortable with it. I enjoy it. No, there's not too many things I was good at. And, so this is what, at least I don't know how good I was, but at least I had a handle on it. You know what I mean? So I felt really good about it. And that's why I stayed with it. And also there was really not many options for me. I mean, I didn't really have much of an education, as far as other than like self-education, so that's kind of what I did.
Well, I'd like to respectfully challenge you on that. I wasn't very good at many things. I mean, you're a great boxer. You were acclaimed in many respects in your acting pedigree, which we're going to talk about as well. You sort of in many ways being a jack of all trades in many aspects of this business and always just a degree or two short of superstardom, right? Like that's kind of the summary of the documentary. And we want to talk about that a little bit today too, because I want everybody to get a chance to see it. It's a great documentary and blows your mind how much success you had, how much press you had, and then how close you were to breaking through.
Well, it's very interesting. With all that being said, and thank you for the kind words, it's still virtually really hard for me to get gigs. And there's people out there that have done, not even an eighth of what I've done. And they're working all the time. I never quite figured it out because I'm kind of anal in the sense that I'm like Frank Sinatra. When you're on time, you're late. You know what I mean? So I have a very good work ethic. So I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't working because of, drunkenness. They're late to the gigs. They're rude to the audience and stuff. And that was never my thing. And so, so it's just interesting to me. I mean, it's frustrating because, when you have a really good band, like I'm very fortunate of having a really good band, and you're not really using that muscle all the time, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But you make do. You make do with that, and you just move on. And I think the documentary I had that do or die type attitude, for myself. And
you always have, and you're actually quite an optimistic guy, given the fact that you've gotten some really rough shakes in life. How have you kept resentment at bay? Because I could think anybody who watches the documentary could understand you going down that path.
Well, there is one. It's not resentment; it's frustration because we work really hard. I mean, we have a. It's very strange, Jim. You play these places and we always, I'm not blowing my own horn, but we always get encores, always get encores or ovations and stuff. And then you find you can't even get someone to come out to see your show to even maybe potentially book you. I mean, I got to say, you did come out like the next day, or I think it was a day and a half. It was we met at, I forget what the hell it was.
We met at Polestar.
Polestar. Okay.
Right.
There were people there coming up to, hey, Frank, how you doing? Not one offer. Not one. Even people that had booked me, nothing. And I just say, you know what? It's kind of, I always think in some ways it's their loss. And I don't mean that in an egocentric way, but it's their loss because they're really missing out on a fun night. And I think a pretty good show. And so I look at it as their loss. You know, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to stop after 55 years because, you know, Joe Schmo doesn't want to book me, you know. So
Yeah, the thing I found really interesting about your show is that there's sort of something in it for everybody, you know,
without
and
being
I think,
show. Yeah.
and I think that's how, yeah, exactly. But that's what made it so proprietary, is because it was different. It wasn't purely one particular thing,
Yeah.
and your career, your life has certainly gone that direction as well. I mean, you know,
Sure.
you started out, you know, sort of like in the you know, the doo-wop thing a little bit. You started with that, and then you went into more pop,
Yeah.
and then you really crushed it, you know, right around 1983, around the soundtrack.
Yeah. Staying
Then
alive.
obviously, yeah, Staying Alive and Far From Over, and you displaced Michael Jackson, Billy Joel, The Police from the top of the chart for a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's incredible that you had that level of success, but then you shifted later and you did your own album independently. You did a big band album, and you worked with some renowned people to pull that concept together. So you've done all of these different things. Do you think sometimes a lack of focus is to blame for not breaking through in one particular domain?
Oh, absolutely. And Russ Reagan, I think, addresses that in the documentary, the one that signed me to Polygram Records. Here's the deal. I mean, I had my first solo album after Staying Alive, but this is where it becomes crestfallen for me, in the sense where some people would maybe think different. Here you go. We're on RCA Records. Rocky comes out. It's a good album. You know, Tony Camillo produced it. It's a good album. Most acts, you would think at that point we would have gotten a 3-album deal, because that's the way it was in those days. Didn't get a 3-album deal. Rocky runs its thing. Bang, we get dropped from RCA. Then we go 5-6 years later. Staying Alive is tremendous. That's the biggest success for me. And this was the writing on the wall, but again, it's my fault. My managers come to me after Staying Alive, and we're looking for a record deal for my album. They said they can't get a record deal. I said, wait a second. I just got nominated for Grammy, Golden Globe. I'm all over the world, did every TV show, in a very successful movie, and you can't get a record deal?
What explanation did they give you?
Well, I don't know. We're trying. But see, at that point, that's what I stress in the movie. If I would have had Irving Azoff or David Geffen or someone like that as a manager, that would have been a no-brainer. They would have gotten more than a 3-album deal, because that's just how they roll, and that's why they're so successful in what they do. So I was definitely and it's not crying in my beer, but I was a victim of that. I mean, let's face it, a lot of it is timing, a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time, and a lot of it is who you have on your side. So I had no mentors. So these guys that were my managers, and I stressed it in the film as well, they couldn't rise to the occasion. You know, they just couldn't. They couldn't take it to this level. And
they didn't have the leverage to get you the deal that you would have needed to get the label invested enough to make sure they put the hustle and muscle behind that first project.
You're absolutely right. And then, you know, what kind of broke the camel's back, that album didn't do well, even though it was critically acclaimed. People like it, but just didn't sell. There was no push by the label. You know, again, if you have a manager that has like the Eagles and a few other groups, they'll listen when you talk. You know what I mean? Because it's
and it shocked me a little bit too that it didn't do well, given the fact that it was a follow-up to Staying Alive, which had been Grammy nominated. You know, you've gotten a Golden Globe nomination at that point. Like, it's not like people weren't aware of you and you were coming out of nowhere.
No, I was doing a lot of TV shows. I was doing a lot of stuff. And so that was frustrating. Okay, so right after my album kind of doesn't do well, the beginnings of rap and hip hop start. Now, I'm totally lost on that, because I'm a real singer-songwriter. I'm not like a hip hop guy. I don't know that much about electronics or sampling, and that's just not me. I mean, I go from I've written with Holland, Dozier and Hall. I've written with Harry Nilsson. I've written with some really good writers. So I'm not saying they're not. They're good writers, but they're not really writers. They're samplers. I mean, it's not like if you said, "Hey, man, okay, let's do a gig with you and a keyboard," they're screwed. You know what I mean? Because that's so. I said, "Well, where can I go? I don't have a record deal. I'm 35 years old." I go, "I got it. I always loved singing big band stuff, and I did it in my brother's film Paradise Alley. I'm singing, and I actually wrote songs in that genre for that." I said, because here I have no competition. I mean, most of the guys I'm in competition with aren't even recording anymore. This is before Harry Connick.
Yes.
And
you were sort of in between that era. You were after Sinatra and Tony Bennett, but you were before Harry Connick Jr. and Michael Bublé.
Yeah, I was before them. And the only ones that had done albums that were kind of young like me, well, they were a little older than me, was Harry Nilsson, which is one of the great albums ever, Touch of Schmilson in the Night with Gordon Jenkins, and Linda Ronstadt with Nelson Riddle. But those were a few years before me. So I'm kind of in this thing, and I go, okay, you know what? If you have to believe in yourself. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to pay for my own record. So I started a label, Simba Records, and I did this album with the great Sammy Nestico, who just passed away, by the way, who's also in the documentary. He thinks it's the best album he's ever done. You have to understand, he is the most prolific writer of American music. I mean, he's in every school in the world. I mean, he's very prolific, and he's worked with Count Basie, he's worked with Sinatra, he's worked with everybody. But this album he loved because I said, "Sammy, do whatever you want." He goes, "Wow," because some people are very demanding. I want this. I said, "I don't. Do whatever you want. I love you. I trust you. I know." And we turned out a hell of an album, and we did the album in Canada, by the way, in Toronto. There was a studio there called Manta Sound in Toronto. And why we went up there was Fred Mullen, who worked on it with me, was Canadian. Well, he lives in Canada. He wasn't Canadian, but lived there. And we had some great players up there, from Rob McConnell's Boss Brass. So we went up there in Toronto and did it at Manta Studios. And it was great. We had a great time because, I'd been to Toronto before because I used to, they did a lot of movies up there then, And
what were the outlets available to market an album like that at that time?
None.
Because
none. RCA. Actually, I have some album covers from RCA. RCA wanted that album because I have some of the prototype albums that are RCA, the label. And all of a sudden, the deal fell through. Like, this is how the record business is. It was like, I said, "This is awesome. RCA Records with a big bad thing." I was like, "Oh, God has looked down on me." And all of a sudden, it's like in the record business, all of a sudden, heads roll. But things change. Now, this guy that was my guy is not there anymore, or he's in a different department. So a new guy comes in and goes,
there's so much volatility in that business. And,
oh, yeah.
And a lot of times when someone takes on a passion project and they get fired, it's almost like people turn on that project out of spite, right? And they want to take on their own new stuff.
No, they didn't want to go on their own. And then it's like, it's like a male lion when he comes into a pride. He'll kill all the cubs from another male because he wants to start his own thing. As barbaric as it is, but the music business can be barbaric. And so that fell through, and I said, "Oh, what am I going to do?" So then I was doing movies in South Africa. I was living there for a while. So I was on a label in South Africa that released it there. And then there was another label, USA Records. And none of these things did anything. I mean, they didn't sell anything. So to me, it's always been like a virgin album because an album that gets out to 10 people is not really a release, So I'm thinking one day someone will get hip and release both albums because the one is Sammy Nestico, who's a legend. The second big band album is Billy May. It's the last album he ever did. And anyone that knows about music, Billy May was the the first guy to give Frank Sinatra a #1 record with "Come Fly with Me." So he did a lot of Frank Sinatra stuff, a lot of anybody. He's actually one of the more. Those are Nelson Riddle, Billy May, Gordon Jenkins, Sammy Nesco. Those are the cats, man. Those are the guys that really all Sinatra guys, Nat King Cole guys, Bing Crosby guys, all that. So I was very fortunate to be that. But I think someone's going to get hip one day and go, "Hey, I said, yeah, and I own them. So you don't have to go through any of that other nonsense. Like, I own these albums. I own the masters. I put my money where my mouth was. They didn't do well. They didn't do well, not because they weren't good albums. They didn't do well because that's not my bag. I'm not a record executive.
Right.
I'm a singer. I'm not a.
Yeah, you're the artist. You're not in charge of marketing the product or finding the audience or reaching the audience. I think that's more than fair. And I by the way, I think that's a predominant problem in the business. A lot of times artists are forced to sort of self-manage and self-market, and
That's the worst.
because there is such a lack of talent on the industry side. I want to jump back quickly to Russ Reagan, because I think that, this to me was interesting too. So Russ has had a polygram. He signed Neil Diamond, Elton John, Brian Wilson, Barry White. He signs you because he believes in your ability as a songwriter and as an entertainer.
Yeah.
How the hell did that guy not put some pressure on somebody in a management team somewhere, given his depth of equity in the industry,
Well,
to find someone competent to work with you? Like, did you ever think to lean on him, or did you go down that road?
I didn't go down that road, but I know he really liked the record. I mean, but he was an old style. I don't know if anyone can relate to it, but he was one of those old style record A&R guys. They didn't get in so much involved in the politics, but he really liked me, and he thought it was really good. I mean, he is the one that signed me. I mean, so which was a good thing. But he told me, it's really funny. God, maybe 8 years ago, I was at Vibrato, and he was there with his wife, and he said, I am really, really sorry, and I want to apologize. I said, what for? He goes, because you know what? He goes, that was a great album, and they didn't treat you right over there, and they just screwed you. And I feel really bad because, it was after the fact. There was really not that much I could do. I was an A&R guy, and but I was always in your corner, but they totally screw you. And I just want to apologize because I know how much you put in that record, and I liked it, and I consider myself a pretty good judge of horseflesh, which he was. I mean, Russ Reagan's legendary. And here's the great thing. His wife called me up, maybe about 3 weeks ago, like kind of right when the documentary came out, and she'd never seen it. And of course, she's a wonderful, but she's like all teary and stuff. She goes, Frank, I just love that. And I just love that you gave my husband such great props, because he was dying at that point. He was not well. But he goes, it meant so much to our family, my son and everything, because, people get forgotten. I don't forget people. People that are good to me, I don't forget. And I don't forget people that are bad to me, but I just move on from the, people that I'm good to. And I understand. Listen, Jim, you got a little taste of it, because remember we were talking about we were going to work and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like kind of, and you said, oh, this is no problem. After you saw a show, so we can just rack them up, bump up.
Yeah.
But there's an invisible shield out there somewhere, and I don't know why. I don't know why there's such a resistance.
Well, I mean, I think it's, and thankfully on this particular show, there's a large cross section of industry people.
Mm-hmm.
If you run a casino, if you run a showroom,
Mm-hmm.
Frank Stallone will put on a hell of a show. He'll drive some ticket sales, but moreover, he will build it as he comes back each time to the market. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to give you a plug on that, because I had those conversations with people who were all really curious and interested, and I think there were a couple things working. Yeah, and I think there, I think there's a couple things working against us. I think sometimes the American dollar exchange in Canada, which adds about 30 to 40%, changes a $15,000 booking to upwards of $22,000, $23,000. Well, then you got to move a lot of tickets, right? Because you've got other expenses. You want those shows marketed. You want the right kind of production. There are things that work against us just purely geographically. But if we can stack enough dates together, who knows? Maybe we can get you up here at some point.
And yourself, it's like, some people, I've asked people, I said, listen, I'll comp you everything. Just come see the show. Go, what's the show like? I said, I can't explain it, because if I explain it in layman terms to you, you're going to think it's a variety show. It's not. It's not a Vegas variety show where I'm sitting on girls' laps singing sappy songs like Paul Anka and stuff like that. It's not that show. No offense, Paul. But I mean, I know he's Canadian, but I'm just saying, it's not a schmaltzy. It's not that type of show.
No, I mean, it's got some intensity to it, but there's a comedic element to it.
Yeah.
How have you evolved the show over the years? Because I would imagine it's changed a lot in the last decade.
It changed tenfold. I mean, when it first started, it was just the band, and then I said, you know what, we got to add horns. I don't care if it costs me more paying you guys, but it's going to sound like the record. It's going to sound like what it's supposed to sound like. So I started with 3 horns. Then I had 4 horns. And now I have 5 horns. Okay? And I got 2 trumpets, trombone, and 2 saxes. And it's full. So it sounds, I remember Chicago, is only 3 horns. So this is 4 horns. So it's actually very big sounding. It sounds like the record. So, but we've honed it, through trial and error, to get it where, like you said, there's something for everybody without it being sappy. It's not a sappy show. It's not like, because it's really good musicianship. I mean, those songs you can't play if you can't play. It's like Gino Vanelli. You can't be in that band if you can't play. And Gino's a friend of mine, Gino and Ralph's. It's just the way, that's his music. It's intense, and you got to be a really, and over the years in Gino's band, it's, I had Gino's drummer, Mark Craney, and a few of his guys in my band when I went on tour in the 80s. And they're top-notch guys, because Gino's music begs for it. You can't play it. His music's complicated. You can't do it if you're not really a top-notch player. And a lot of my songs, I'm not saying I'm Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It's not like that. But there are things there that you have to be able to do. You
also have these really great, unique, and proprietary stories between the songs because of your breadth of experience in Hollywood. And when you first moved out to LA, you were sort of taking a very dual approach to stardom. At that point, you were acting in movies. You were in Rocky III. You did Barfly. Later on, you did movies like Tombstone, which is such a great role. But you were doing a lot of acting too, and you were doing that with your music. You were splitting a lot of time between 2 careers that require a lot of time and focus. Do you ever feel like sometimes you were a victim to your own multidimensional, multifaceted talent?
Well, yeah. I mean, because one thing, I had to make a living. And all of a sudden, when for some reason the music just, I'm dueling around one. No, for some reason, like when I say it dried up for me, I mean, it went from touring to nothing. And then from there, my band broke up, which really pissed me off, because I had a great band, and we'd go out on the road. We were going out with Little River Band. It was awesome. And so for me to stop that was really tough for me, because I didn't want that. But then I was getting offered acting roles. Now, the acting stuff didn't really come till after Staying Alive and after my solo album. I mean, I did a few stupid little things. Like in Rocky III, I basically was my brother's stand-in, and then getting beat up by Mr. T and him in the movie, and also singing. So I was kind of like a singing heavy bag, if that makes any sense. So that's what I was doing there. And then all of a sudden I started getting offers. And my first movie actually was in Toronto. I was staying at the Sutton and down where all the actors went. And they offered me a starring role in this goofy movie called The Pink Chiquitas. And we shot it in Toronto, in Hamilton, and Kitchener, and all. And it was great. Listen, man, it was great. And I loved the Canadian people. So that was the beginning. And I said, wait a second, man. And I'm not a materialistic person in a sense. I have stuff. I'm not like, it's not my gold. I'm not like Mark Cuban. You know what I mean? Not that I'm even close to that. But I mean, I'm just saying, I said, man, I'm making more money on this movie than I would on like 2 tours.
Right. So you're chasing a little money and you're chasing a little fame, which is totally understandable. But by virtue of that, do you feel like
I
there was a lot
abandoned
going
music.
on
Yes.
that
I
people
did.
in the music industry might have gone, I'm not positive this guy's committed, even though it was what you really wanted to do.
I don't even know if they really cared if I was or not. It wasn't like, I was like making them rich or anything like that. So I don't think so much that. I think it was myself. And then all of a sudden I became like, I was like a serious musician. I mean, this is my whole life. And all of a sudden I would be on these movie sets and they'd be talking about music and like one of these actors or singers. And all of a sudden it's like I became a voyeur, which was disgusting to me. All of a sudden, man, I'm the cat. You're like a bad actor and a bad singer. I said, this is what I do. But I kind of abandoned it. And I regretted it. So about 11 years ago or more, maybe more, maybe 12 years ago, I said, you know what? I'm dedicating myself to music. The acting stuff wasn't happening that much. I said, screw it. You go around one time, I'm going to do what I'm born to do. And that's how I started. I started with a 4-piece band, playing for $150 a night out here, going from $40,000 a night to $150 a night. But I wanted to play. I didn't need the money. I wanted to get out and play. So I became the old Frank Stallone, buying guitars, different amps, because I was always a freak with that stuff. And it was so much fun to be back on stage and playing and having really great musicians. And again, I wasn't worried about the money. So these groups evolved into different things. And then different players, I said, okay, this guy's great, but he doesn't sing. Or this guy can really sing, he doesn't play that good. So I juxtaposed everything until I got it where I wanted to. And I owe that to my musical director, Jonathan Hughes. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if I could do it because, he's British and he's very organized, which I'm organized, but I'm Italian, so I'm not organized, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Well, and you're an artist, right?
Like
the thing about artistry is it's such a dynamic skill set that you just can't be good at everything,
No, I mean, there are
Impossible.
people, and I don't really, and that's why when I met you, I was saying, well, hopefully we can get something going here. Because I don't like doing the booking. I don't like, they go, well, how much do you want? I don't like being in that position because it's kind of, I don't know. It's creepy. I don't like it like, well, I want $50,000. I mean, let someone else do it because he doesn't have any emotional attachment to it. It's business.
Well, and it's hard for artists to price themselves because they're too close to it. I do agree with that. You need someone in the middle who can
Let him
manage the expectations, right? And present your product objectively and honestly to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I think that is it's difficult to do sometimes with a product that is great. There's no denying how great the show is. But I think sometimes, and maybe this was a problem too back in the Polygram days when they were trying to figure out a way to market you. I think it's like, how do you compartmentalize what it is in order to sell it to the market, even though it's exceptional, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah, again, but for the person to do that, they have to see the show.
Right.
And, Jim, you have no idea. That is where I get frustrated and a little bit angry. I said, why can't you just get off your ass and come see the show? What is the big deal? It's like one of the best clubs in the United States. It's Herb Alpert's place. It has all the glitz of Hollywood. Everyone comes in there from Tom Jones. What's the problem?
So you're speaking about people in the industry who just haven't even made the effort to come out and check out the show.
Not even an effort. And that's what really pisses me off. Excuse the French, because
no, I mean, I think you've commanded respect by virtue of your accomplishments.
I mean,
the fact you're not getting it is certainly understandable that it frustrates you.
But I come from an era where agents were hustlers, man. They came from, well, so and so's. I heard this guy's doing a great show tonight. Go, and they would get off their ass and come see the show, and they would really make an effort to do that. But I don't see that anymore. It's like almost like in acting. They just whatever. They just phone it in. In those days, they would come out, they would develop, they would see the show, they'd go some suggestions, which sometimes I could live without. Here, why don't you try this? I said, because I don't want to. I'm not good with scripted. I mean, I've done 77 movies. I mean, in other words, I'm articulate and stuff like that. But when people want me to do a scripted show, I can't. It's just not me. And as you see, when I'm on the oh Christ.
It's okay. It's all right.
All right, so Dodo. Anyway, but I'm just saying.
Maybe that was one of the agents calling there.
Right. Called Dumbbell Agency. Yeah, I saw it. But no, but the thing is, and that is what's frustrating and really gets me a little PO, because why can't you just make the effort, come to see the show? If you don't like the show, you lost nothing. You got a dinner, you got a great thing. And, if you're a single guy, there's beautiful women. I mean, but they don't want to make the effort anymore. It's almost like, I'll tell you a funny story. Ron Meyer, who ended up being the president of Universal Pictures, started CAA. Okay. And my brother was their first artist. Before, when Sly went with them, they had like a card table. There was nothing. Okay. And Sly was the biggest actor in the world. This is like 77. Huge. He gained more money than any other actor out there, right?
He's riding high.
Yeah, way high. They're going, hey, we're starting this agency. We'd like you to come. He goes, what are you, crazy? I'm with William Marr. I'm huge. You go, no. We got this plan to do this. Okay. He took a chance, went with these guys, Ovitz, Ron Meyer, and Bill Haber. From that, he's the hottest thing. Now all these other actors come to CAA because, wait a second, they were getting $900,000 a picture, and now they're getting $2 million a picture, and Sly's getting like stupid money, right? So to fast forward this is after I did Barfly, and Ron Meyer is known in the business. He always returns someone's phone call. I don't care. And I'm a nobody back then. But if he was in an airplane, he'd return his phone call.
But you were also the brother of his biggest client.
I was, but he's known for that. He's a former Marine. So he's like, he's like kind of one of those guys. So I said, Ron, I'm just having so much trouble. I'm getting great reviews on Barfly and Tombstone, but I just can't get an agency. I mean, what do you think about CAA? He goes, look, Frank, now here's the president of CAA. He goes, if you want to come to CAA and have that logo on your thing, CAA, I'll sign you right now, but you're never going to work. I go, what do you mean? Because the agents this day are lazy. They just pick up the phone. They don't really go the extra mile. But if you want that, you can be it, but they're never going to book you, because you know what? It's just the nature of the business. They're not, because, well, I forget who it was. You'll know of him. He was an actor. He was in Cocoon and all. Steve Guttenberg. And he and I kind of looked alike, but he was getting like, $400,000 a picture. I was getting like Ungats, So they're going to take him if they want that type above me. He goes, you're not going to work. He goes, my suggestion to you is find a boutique type agency that thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread, that are going to go out and work for you. These guys aren't going to work for you. All you'll have is a CAA logo, but you're not going to go anywhere. So I took that to heart, and I did get a boutique agency, which I mentioned in the movie. The first thing that came across their desk was a movie with my brother that Monday. They couldn't get me in, and I never heard from them again. So that was the boutique agency.
Yeah, they actually had you cast to play your brother's brother in a movie. Yeah. I can't think of a better role. And the casting agent for the film itself denied it. Said,
no, what happened? Yeah, I just had a meeting champagne. We signed Frank. We're so happy to have him. We love Tombstone and we love all that stuff. That Monday, I signed Friday. That Monday, across the desk comes a movie called, I think it was Gale Force. It was a movie that was never made. And there was like a 6th part, down of my brother's, a guy playing Sylvester's brother.
Yeah.
So these guys call up. They knew the agent, the casting person, who I will leave. I'm not going to give her the props. Anyway, so they said, why should I?
Props.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So it went like this. He said, hey, how you doing, hon? He goes, by the way, we see this thing just came across our desk about Gale Force starring Sylvester Stallone. And by the way, there's a part there we see for someone playing Sly's brother. And by the way, we just signed Frank Stallone Friday. And she's there, oh, that's great. Love Frank, all this stuff like this. And he goes, so what do you think? So all of a sudden there's like silence, dead silence on the phone. He's going, his name, what was it? Chris Barrett was the agent, not the casting person. He goes, well, so what's up? What's going on? She goes, we see it's like, it's not a big role, but it's a role and they're brothers. And she goes, I just don't see it. Okay. Never heard from the agency again. This was after the champagne lunch and everything on Friday. On Monday, they were saying to themselves, probably, if we can't deliver Frank Stallone in his own playing his brother in his brother's movie, we're dead. And that was it. And that's how the business goes. And that's how it went.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that they felt they needed to give up that soon. I think Ron Meyer actually gave you some really good advice. I think sometimes rather than being a 2nd or 3rd tier client with a major agency, it's better to be a top tier client with a smaller agency. I think that's really good advice.
I did. What happened? They never got back to me.
Yeah. Well, obviously they were the wrong fit for you at the time.
You're right.
But listen, I'm observing you right now, and none of this is an indictment, but you're a busy guy. You got shit going on while we're doing this interview. You're all over the place, which is a good thing because you can multitask and do a lot.
I'm a really good multitasker, and I'm also a little bit of a slob, and I'm just trying to get things together here. No, but
as it pertains to your career, you always had so many things on the go that it was probably hard for people to sort of peg you, right? And your brother was an actor. There was no doubt that was where he was headed. There was never any flirtation with music. With you, it's like you're a great musician, you're a great actor, you are a great front man. You're a great host, by the way. I watched you on the Contender series when you did some boxing analyst work. Like, you have all of these skill sets, but I think for some people who work in the business, simplicity and the ability to communicate simplicity is key.
Well, you know what? I can be simple, but I will probably never be a simple person. I'm just into a lot of different phases of life. I'm into all kinds of music. I love opera. I love classical. I have so many facets of my life that I enjoy that I don't know if I could function. My mother, who's in the documentary, God bless her soul, she just died in September. And she had that sort of restlessness. Even though I'm a laid back guy, I'm a restless soul,
Right.
And she lived a month, almost 2 months shy of 99. She was still driving, believe it or not. She played her piano and accordion every day. She exercised every day. Okay. I think I get a lot of that. And I think my brother has that because we don't come from a show business family. My father was a hairdresser. Right. Okay. And so there's a self-motivating factor. And I'm not the most motivated guy. When I read Eric Clapton's autobiography, I was kind of happy in a way to hear that he's lazy too and doesn't pick up his guitar all the time. He'd rather be out fly fishing. So, there's some people that are just like Diane Warren, great songwriter. That's all they do. That's all they do. They sit and they practice music. That's it.
Yeah, and they just get really excellent at one particular thing, and that's their thing. And a guy like you, I think, and I
Can't
keep
do
coming
it.
back to this, it's a blessing and a curse because
Yeah.
you're great at a bunch of things. You also seem to be very interested in always being busy, always starting something else, always pushing forward with another
Not always
initiative.
finishing, but I start.
And yeah, and I think like, do you ever wonder when you think about yourself and the chaos that you came from as a child, that that's a coping mechanism, that if you're busy and you're not sitting with yourself or focusing on one thing, it gives you the ability to distract yourself and your consciousness with something else.
Well, this COVID is not like a good thing for my mental state, as it is not for a lot of people. Um, when I say busy, I'm not busy sitting around writing poetry or writing songs, but I'm just doing stuff. I love to shoot trap. I like to fish. I like to, you know,
You're in the gym every day.
yeah,
Every day you're in the gym.
well, I had 2 back operations this year, so I haven't been in the gym like as much as I wanted to be. But that being said,
Generally,
normally I'm in the gym, getting back to working out. Same as my brother. We're all getting back into working out again because it's just been a drag. So I put like a small gym in my house because I went to Gold's and everyone's like wearing a face mask. I said, forget it. I'm not going to the gym. Like, what am I, in an OR room or something? I mean, I'm not going to the gym, or I just do in my own house. So, so I do find things the way to distract myself. I'm always doing an errand or something like that. But what I'd really like to be doing is playing because that's what I do. It's like a boxer that's not boxing.
yeah.
You
There's
don't get
probably
better.
some sort of almost healing element when you're on stage and you're playing,
Yeah,
and it's cathartic, therapeutic.
it is.
Like I've worked with artists all my life. I've never been gifted myself with artistry, but I've worked with them all my life, and I see them just light up when they get on stage, and even, and again, this isn't an indictment on them, but I see artists who love their families and they have beautiful families with children, but when they get on stage, that's when they're really in heaven. Like
That is my
they're with their kids, they're enjoying themselves, but when they're on stage, it's something totally different. It's another level, and you
and that
have
is
that.
that is my family. And I was like, and I'm not put myself in the same thing, but Paul McCartney was the one in the Beatles that really liked being in a band. He was the one that was affected most when the band broke up because he liked it. He loved being in a band. It was like family to him and stuff. So I did like being in a band because when you're in a band like that for when you're a kid, it is like a family. You know what I mean? You have all your inside jokes. You're laughing on stage because some stupid thing that happened in the dressing room. But there was a family vibe to it. And I, coming from a broken family, that was really important to me. That I
Right.
had. And so when that broke up, I kind of was drifting. Thank God I never got into the drug scene or stuff
How
like
did
that.
you steer clear of that, especially through the 80s when everybody was fucking doing it?
Because I didn't dig it. I mean, of course, I smoked pot. Yeah, I tried cocaine a few times. It just
Do you
wasn't.
still smoke pot
No,
now
no,
that it's legal? It's not as
not.
much fun.
Yeah, it's not as much fun. But the thing is, also, I'm a singer, so it's not like the greatest thing I could do. I don't. I mean, I'm not against other people that do it. They do it for medicinal reasons and stuff like that. But it just wasn't my thing. And even in the 80s and 70s, I didn't even drink. So I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't really do. I did smoked weed once in a while with the guys, but my imagination flourishes anyway, and the last thing I need is mind enhancing drugs. It doesn't work on me.
Right.
And I know people that can sit there and drop acid and go about their day's work, and I don't. And my brother said, "Well, because basically they're stupid. They don't have that much brain to work with. So I mean, it's just like, oh, so it's not like they have a great imagination to begin with." He goes, "You have a vivid imagination, and I don't think it's like the smartest thing for you to do." And I'm not saying everyone that dropped acid is stupid, but it's a thing.
You don't need any more excuses to go off on tangents than you already have.
No, and I don't need anything to boost me to go on stage. I'm very comfortable on stage. I remember times when I would open for Don Rickles, and that's old school, man.
Oh
And
yeah.
Yeah, and those are the days when I smoked cigarettes and stuff. I was trying to do the Sinatra thing, yeah. And I'd have my cocktail in hands. And I was the type of person that could sit backstage, cracking jokes, talking to the crew, cigarette, and they go, Frank, 2 minutes. Yeah, okay. Say this anyway. And then all of a sudden, and walk on stage. I mean, there's some artists that are vomiting, they're sick, they're nauseous before they go on stage. Not me. I mean, I think that, and I hope that never changes, but not me. I liked being there, and I enjoyed it. So I didn't have that thing. But some people that are really good, it's terrifying for them. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. I mean, it's terrifying. And so
Oh,
I,
it's good you were never saddled with that burden. I mean, one thing that I do find interesting about you, and you touch on it in the documentary, is that you never really felt like you were playing the game you needed to be part of the insider circle. You referred to Hollywood insider bullshit,
yeah,
most specifically when you talked about being snubbed at the Academy Awards with the Staying Alive soundtrack and the recordings affiliated with that.
yeah.
But you're always a bit of a contrarian. I mean, I still follow you on social media, and I see that you have uh, less than heterodox Hollywood opinions on a lot of social
Well,
issues.
I kind of pulled back a little on that, and you know what, I realize I am never going to change my opinion on my faith or my patriotism. I don't care because that's who I am. I'm not going to do that because some dilettante in Hollywood is just. I mean, the things I've heard on social media on the death of Rush Limbaugh. I mean, from some of these Hollywood lead, it's shameful. Oh, he should rot in hell. I said the man just died a horrible death of cancer. Whether you agree with him or not, I mean, where has the heart and soul gone? Where has that gone? I mean, it's almost like when you see the movie, it's one of the great scenes of all time, Inherit the Wind, with Spencer Tracy and Gene Kelly when he plays Clarence Darrow. And even though they were nemesis, like William Jennings Bryan, Frederick March, and Clarence Darrow in real life on the Scopes trial about, Darwin's theory and things like that. At the end, when Gene Kelly says something, oh, well, he was an old windbag, and he goes, don't you have any sense of decency? A man just
Mm.
died, a great man. Well, who's going to mourn for you when you die? Are you just some empty sleeve flapping in the wind? And it's something. There comes a point when you take the gloves off, eh? You know what I mean? It's Jesus Christ. The guy just died of lung cancer, and because you didn't like what he said or this, I said, you know what? I am an equal opportunity lender. I've always been very much in for people being able to express themselves and say what they want to say. And I consider myself more conservative, but I'm also not conservative on certain things. I'm a, environmentalist, but not crazy environmentalist. But I think the woods and nature should always be taken care of. But and so that's in Hollywood. So I'm not a politician at all. And I'm not a political pundit. I'm just like,
When
regular.
did you first feel that you were going to have a hard time fitting into those circles? Like, when was it that you got the first gut feel where you're like, son of a bitch, I'm not going to be playing this game?
I never did because I never did play the game. I mean, I played the game to the point of being a professional when I don't care who it was. If they hired me for a job, I went there and I did my job and I showed up on time. I did it. I have a lot of friends of mine from all different walks of life, all different religions, all different political beliefs, and I get along with them fine because I am from the world of live and let live. As long as you're not
Right.
killing someone, you're allowed to have
Which is actually a liberal belief,
exactly.
right? Like, it really is a liberal, a paramount liberal belief. It's like live and let live. As long as you're not hurting anybody or taking
That's
advantage of anybody, like, do your thing.
do your thing, and that's how I've always felt. So, and I think that's a pretty good attitude to have. I think it's a good attitude to have, and and that's how I live my life. I mean, I'm not out to hurt anybody. I'm not on a witch hunt. I just think everything in life should be fair. But when I hear how certain people
But
talk,
you're in show business.
I am. And
which is like the most unfair business.
I know I am. I know. I'm stuck
Yeah.
in it. But but I'm going to be a man of my beliefs, and I'm not going to sell out for anybody. But I'm also not on the soapbox. I mean, I find when I see certain variety shows, as the Academy or the Grammys, I wish they would just leave their politics at home. It's an entertainment show. I remember when I was a kid, I used to look forward all year for the Academy Awards and the Grammys. I mean, all year, because you'd see John Wayne, Loretta Young, I mean, it was, and I lived in a dumpy ghetto, an $80 a month apartment with a pair of rabbit ears on a black and white TV. And this is in the 70s, so shows you how far back I was. They didn't even have color TV. But I would look forward to that. Bob Hope was the host, or Johnny Carson. And then it just got into this thing, man, that it doesn't even resemble it doesn't even resemble the Academy Awards anymore. And it's causing trouble for them, because
I think it's a valid point that the ratings are
low.
tanking. Listen, I think ratings for terrestrial television award shows are just on a downward trend regardless, but the ratings are tanking for these shows. And I don't disagree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I'm tuning into that show to escape from Fox, CNN, and MSNBC myself as a consumer. I want to be entertained. I want jokes. I want music. I want laughter. I want.
Exactly.
Sometimes I find the speech is very powerful and motivating. Matthew McConaughey had an acceptance speech at the Oscars a few years ago that just like resonated so much with people. Those are the things I'm tuning in for.
It wasn't.
I know you're anti-Trump. I know, like when I'm watching those shows, it's like I already know that.
Right.
You don't need to beat it into my skull. And then the other thing that I think is dangerous is conflating being anti-Trump with being morally superior,
someone else,
against the background of Hollywood, which really inspired the Me Too movement. And it's like, I think that people are just turned off by the hypocrisy of that. I think consumers are turned off by the hypocrisy of that, because they see that and they go, wait a minute, we've all heard the casting couch stories like for years, right?
I don't think people want to be lectured, Jim.
Don't lecture me. Yeah.
I think people just don't want to be lectured. And I think my movie is not a lecturing thing. I think I would love to be, I actually love being a mentor. And I can be a little harsh as a mentor, because the reality is this is a rough business. So if you think you're just going to roll into Hollywood and own it, you got another thing coming. So, but I like talking to young people, and I get it all the time. So, my son John is, he loves guitar, and he really respects your opinion. Can you give him any advice? I said, well, how thick is his skin? They go, what do you mean? I said, you have to be determined and have a thick skin, because you're going to deal probably with 97% rejection. Because if you think, and you know what, you'll be like everyone else. All these guys, they sit in their apartments, read their lines with their girlfriends, and their girlfriends saying, oh, you got this, you're so good for this part. And then you go for the audition and you choke. That's show business. Because on that day going in, they're just sitting there like this. They've seen every bad actor all day, and they want to go home, and then they're looking at you. So you can sometimes be the victim of that, the victim of that. And it's a rough business. It's happened to me. I mean,
I really believe that your ability to.
I didn't get a part in the movie playing a family member. So how dumb is that? Okay.
I think your ability to succeed in the arts is directly proportionate to your ability to navigate failure and rejection, because they're just part and parcel, right? Like if you create something which always taps into the vulnerability of the creator, and you put it out in the real world, there's always going to be people who love it and people that hate it. That's just the way it is,
Of course. And
we listen more to the voices that hate it, unfortunately. And that's something that I think you almost have to train yourself to take good coaching, constructive criticism, and leave the trolling behind. And I think if you can develop that, you can become pretty bulletproof.
I have a great publicity team. Roger's account, PMK, Lee Meltzer's kind of he's the ramrod, what they call in country, in the farm. He's ramrodding the whole thing, so he's kind of like the head guy on this thing. And he said, Frank, do you want to see all your reviews? I go, what do you mean? He goes, you know what? I mean, do you really need to read if they're bad? I go, not really. He goes, but I mean, it's just someone's opinion. I mean, if you want to see him, you can. If you don't, I'll just send you the good reviews. I said, yeah, I'll take the good with the bad. Because I know what I am. I say, I know who I am. I know what I am. I know what this film is. Believe me, no one is harsher on Frank Stallone than Frank Stallone, man. I mean, I come down, I bludgeon myself, okay? So if I like it, and my brother likes it, who doesn't like anything in movies, then I know we're on the right track. If Arnold likes it, so if there's people out there that I respect in the business, and the average person loved the movie, I know I did it. We did a good job. And again, someone else can have their own opinion. Have at it. I don't have.
I think the documentary is compelling. It gives people real insight into your talent. It reminds them of your ability to navigate successfully across many domains that are all very difficult in their own right. I watched the documentary. By the way, folks, you can get it on iTunes in Canada. You can get it on YouTube. You can just pop right onto YouTube and buy it. It's real easy. The documentary is called Stallone, Frank, that is, and it's
you get it on iTunes.
Yeah.
iTunes, Google Play, and of course Amazon Prime. I don't know what you have in Canada for that.
I didn't find it on Amazon Prime up here. I think it might be licensed in the US that way, but I did find it on iTunes, and I did download it and watch it on YouTube. So yeah, it's a great documentary, man. Congratulations. And what was the impetus behind putting this together? Like, at what point were you like, I should document my life, or was it even your idea?
It wasn't my idea at all. The director, Derek Wayne Johnson, he said, "Hey, you like to get together for lunch?" I go, "Yeah, okay." I'd met him at a function. I know he'd done the documentary on John Avildsen called King of the Underdogs. To those out there, John Avildsen directed Rocky and won the Academy Award for it, and had a rough going of it after. And so we met, and I says, "Listen, we've kind of put our heads together. We want to do a documentary on you." I go, "Really?" Now, I've heard a lot of applesauce over the years. I hear all this crap. We like to do this. Hey, we like to do a Barfly festival. All this. I hear it all the time. So I go, yeah, okay, whatever. And I just kind of forgot about it. And then they approached me about a month later and said, "Well, we're kind of ready to get going on this." I go, are you serious? They go, "Yeah, of course we're serious." So I gave them access to all the people I knew in the business that I considered friends, like Danny Aiello, Joe Mantegna, Geraldo, my brother, and guys, in Guns N'
Arnold
Roses.
Schwarzenegger, Billy Zane, Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. It's a great cast.
Billy D. Williams. So there's a lot of Chris McDonald's. There's a lot of people in it. And there were some people that turned it down. I don't know for what reason. Maybe they're busy, doing movies or something like that. But the most important thing for me is I wanted to get the people that I started with in 1965. We were making like $4 for the whole band, playing someone's like yard, which it was. Our first gig was playing on the grass in someone's backyard in 1965 in Philadelphia, and extension cords coming from the house to our amps. It was like we had like 2 amps. It was that. And I thought that was the important thing, because to get here, you have to have a past. So the past kind of culminates to who you are now, hopefully in a good way. And it was really amazing. I hadn't seen some of these people in 50 years. These were my bandmates I started with, because, what happened in that era, guys got drafted, people got married young, guys went to college. Me, I didn't go to college. Regretfully, I don't think I would have been good at it. I think I have a learning disability. I always, as I get older, I really realize I do have ADD, and I think everyone in my family does, because when I buy a product and they have like the instructions, it's like this, I go blank. Like if there's anything technical about like something, okay, so you put this to 2/3 liquid, I'm shot. I just doesn't compute in my brain. And So,
And have you always been that way, or is that more
I
recent?
know, I recognize it now. I don't know if I've always been that way, but I do really realize that it. And I was just looking at my old report cards from the 50s and 60s, and they said, well, Frank is a good boy if he stops disrupting the class and can concentrate. Everyone, well, Frank is concentrating better, but he's a nice, happy-go-lucky guy, but he disrupts the class with his joke. So I was definitely the court jester of the school. I wasn't like the academia, academic chap. But I now I
Have you
realize,
ever tried meditation or anything
yeah,
like that?
yes, I did. Yeah, I did. I did.
Did it help?
Transition. It It did, and I liked it because I went through a period of time where I was like really hyper, and I was.
More than you are right now? I can't imagine that.
I'm just lame. I know what it is. Honest to God, I'm just kind of. My house is such a mess because I'm getting rid of stuff. It's just I'm not. Believe me, I'm not OC. What's it called? OCC. Obsessive compulsive. No, not at all. OCD, not at all. If you saw my house, you would definitely know I'm not OCD. But as I'm sitting here talking to you, my hands are just kind of going over here, like,
Yeah.
what is that over there? But no, I'm not. I'm not like when you see Quentin Tarantino, he's like kind of twitchy. Yes, I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, but I'm trying to do it. I keep forgetting I'm on film. So I was just like, I'm kind of like a magician. Just my hands are moving. So I'm going, oh, so anyways, Jim, what is this? So I'm just like cherry picking crap on my house because it's hard for me to think if stuff's all like messy. So I'm really into an organizational phase now because I'll probably be moving from California soon, probably to join the rest of my family in Florida because it's just becoming unbearable here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Florida and Texas seem to be where it's at right now.
well, I would go to
If
yeah,
if
probably.
you want to be out and
Yeah,
living life.
I just hate seeing what's happening to a lot of these great cities. I mean, I love New York City. I hear it looks like a wasteland now, but it looks like Escape from New York. I love Los Angeles, but you know what? It's like the age of innocence is gone. It's gone. It's getting criminal. They're really not making movies here anymore. It's all these things that are going on that are very distasteful to me because again I have a live and let live attitude. I always have. I'm Italian, so if you grew up in like an Italian part, hey, mind your business. So basically, live and let live, because you could mind his business, you could end up with a pair of cement shoes in the river. You know what I mean? So basically the whole thing was mind your business, live and let live, così così, but I'd say I'm fairly happy-go-lucky. I mean, the thing that I love more than anything is getting recognition or from my peers. That's always been important to me. And the fans.
Yeah.
Fans are very important, but there's really something like Tom Jones came to the show, and I'm a real Tom Jones guy. And he said, Frank, I really love the show. I'm there, oh, wow, it's Tom Jones saying. So I know I'm doing it right. I mean, if Tom Jones, he doesn't have to say anything. He's Tom Jones. You know what I mean? If he's saying that he really likes the show, that's big, big for me. I just wanted to show you something. There's something in the movie when people talk about certain things. I don't know if you can see this. It says, this is what I had to go through all the time. This Friday and Saturday, Sylvester Stallone's brother, Frank Stallone and Valentine. Why his picture is
Hold it up a little bit. Hold it up a little. Yeah. Oh my God. I can see it.
Picture is on the poster of me playing a club. And now you wonder why my band got pissed off. How did you
deal with it? I mean, obviously you would have hated it, but you love your brother and you don't resent his success. How do you reconcile this large shadow that he casts that to some degree has been a blessing and really helped you in many ways, but in many aspects has maybe not given people the ability to take you seriously?
Yeah, we talked about that once. I said, I always wonder where I would have been if Rocky was never made. But when I think about it, I was still on a trajectory to be a rock star. I mean, we were having meetings with RCA. So I had a very functioning real band. It wasn't like, I was waiting around for Rocky to happen. But it could have turned out different. I wouldn't have been compared to my brother. So it could have turned out different. I asked Sly, I said, what would happen if you wouldn't have done Rocky? He goes, who knows? I've probably just been some character actor, sitting around the diner talking about all the parts we didn't get, which happens, which I don't want to end up in Hollywood, because that's a sad state of affairs when you see a lot of actors. I'm 70 years old. I don't feel it, but I am. So I came here in my late 20s. So it's amazing when all of a sudden the time goes. I was a young kid when I came here, and all the hot looking girls and stuff. Now I look at them, they're 70, 68 years old.
Right.
Old. They're like grandmothers now. But, but my mind, like my mother's mind, I don't think like that. I still think a guy's 60. I said, that guy's an old dude, man. And he's younger than me, because I just doesn't compute in my head,
Yeah. You are very youthful. Your energy is very youthful, and you stay very active. And I think those things are to a degree the fountain of youth.
They are the fountain of youth. But the thing is, I've really seen, when I came here, there were like older actors that were real bitter. Yeah, I could have been in The Godfather. Sure, I could have done this. And they were like just real bitter kind of guys. And they'd hang out at a place called Silver Spoons, which was a kind of a diner out here.
Yep.
All commiserate, miserable. Son of a bitch, I could have had that part. And I said, man, I never want to end up like that. I don't want to be bitter. I do have probably reasons in some ways of being bitter, but I don't think bitter does anything. Bitter just makes you more bitter, and I don't think anything happens from it. I try to, I don't know. I just try to push on. I would be very, very happy nowadays with all the casinos out there. Just do casino gigs. You come in, it's, a lot of these Native American casinos out there. There's millions of them in Canada, everywhere. You can actually just do Canada and the United States, and you would be chock-a-blocked to the gills with gigs without having to do the one-nighters are ones those are the ones that killed guys. That's like when I used to talk to Richie and John, from Hall & Oates, and Bon Jovi and Duff from Guns N' Roses. That's what started the drugs and the stuff. You're on the road for a year and a half.
Yeah. Playing a different city every night.
Yeah, and you're living out of a suitcase. You're partying. You're not sleeping. And it catches up to you. So what happens? Idle time is the devil's playground. And then all of a sudden, God, you have your pick of every girl in the audience out there, basically, if you're a huge rock star like that. And all of a sudden, it just manifests itself in different ways. And that's why a lot of people, as you know, and I know in the business, are like on a program, whatever, if it's Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that, or some kind of rehab, because it took its toll. And I saw that, so I saw that. And I said, you know what? That's not for me.
There's something to be said for the nobility of picking up your suffering.
Yes.
Trudging forward and making the best life you can out of the cards you've been dealt.
Absolutely.
Right? There's something that actually, even if you've been dealt a really bad hand of cards, there's something about that makes you feel like you're at least evolving as a human. But if you stew in bitterness, there's no way out.
It takes a lot of courage. I've known friends of mine that were very deep into drug addiction. Bad. Heroin. Bad, where they lost everything. My friend Chuck Negron from Three Dog Night, he makes no bones of that. He goes, I was in the biggest group in the world. We had our own jet. We had 26 top 10 records. And I ended up, he's a big guy, 135 pounds, living next to a dumpster in downtown LA. The biggest group ever, Three Dog Night. He goes, and that's what drugs did to me. And I thought it could never happen. I got it under control. So what he's done with his life, he's dedicated his life to kids and mentoring. He's saying, you are not going to beat it. You may think you are, but you're not, because it's going to lead to bad decisions. It's going to lead to bad relations, because your brain's not thinking right.
No.
when you're addicted. So I was never addicted. I had emotional issues, which I'm very open about, with panic attacks and anxiety attacks, which no one was addressing in those days. And I believe in the divine intervention. I think God was there to save me, because I think if I didn't have music, I don't know where I'd be. I wasn't like a violent person. It wasn't that. But I don't know, coming from a broken home and stuff, I don't know where emotionally I would have been if I didn't have this outlet, as is my brother. We're
You
brothers.
have to find a place to channel it, and you did that.
I did.
It's
I think
you often hear this idea that it's not your fault, the trauma that you endured, especially as a child, but it is your responsibility to decide what you're going to do with the energy created by that trauma.
You're right. It's like, here's the old theory. I said, why'd you smack your son? Well, my father did it to me. I said, but did you like it? He goes, hell no. I said, then why are you hitting your kid? That's exactly what you're talking about. Well, why are you a heroin addict? Well, my parents were heroin addicts. I said, yeah, look how crappy your life was. Why would you imitate that behavior? So I came from a volatile family. My father's could be a violent individual. And I kind of chose to go the other route. And I'm thanking God. I think that's why I got into boxing. Boxing was the best thing that ever happened to me, for the sense, because I was somewhat timid. My father scared the shit out of us, my brother and I. He was a scary guy. But when I got into boxing, all of a sudden, bang, you get hit. You go, well, you son of a bitch. And then you go after the guy. And then there's a training aspect of it. There's a discipline aspect of it. When you get hit, you don't show pain. You don't show that this guy's gotten the best. So there's a mental thing. And then there was the camaraderie of it. I was the only white guy in my gym, right? But I got along with everybody, because everyone's talking jive in the gym. Hey, man, what happened, man? Nah, I'm good, man. Don't worry about it. But everyone's breaking everyone's chops in the gym. So again, there was another little bit of a family. So I always wanted like a family environment. So I had the group, which is one part of family. I had the boxing thing, was another part of a kind of like a clubhouse.
But ironically, you're not married.
No, I never got married.
So the idea of finding a family on the road and the band and in boxing, I mean, it's tight knit, but you didn't end up with the actual family unit. Do you think that might have been because where you came from was so volatile?
Yeah, I think I have intimacy issues and abandonment issues, because that was a reality for me. And I think if I wanted to have gotten married, I would have. I was in an interview, and this girl kept pressing me about it. And I said, well, I guess I forgot. She goes, what? You forgot to get married? I go, obviously, if I wanted to, I would have done it. And I am not the poster boy for, family, home, and garden. You know what I'm saying? But again, coming from a broken home, the music was more important to me. Yes, were there times when people went away for the holidays? I spent many Christmases by myself in a hotel room when everyone else was going back to be with their girlfriend or their wives. I did that. I get it. But that's part of the game. I mean, there's a lot of loneliness in this game. There's a lot of solitude in this game. There's a lot of disappointment in this game. It comes with the territory. So you have to be, it's a little different when you get like Madonna or these people. They didn't really struggle that long, a few years. I didn't get my first hit record till I was almost 18, 19 years in the business professionally. So a lot of these people you see, like Justin Bieber, they were on social media, but they never made their bones. When you see groups like the band, like Martin Scorsese, they played every honky-tonk and hooch club for 15, 16 years before they made a record. Same thing with me. So there's something about it when you appreciate it. These other guys go on American Idol, they've never even played a live gig. They've got a singing coach, they've got a dance coach, they got someone doing their makeup for one song. I would do 160 minutes of music a night for like $20 with my band. If you ended it up, that's a night. That's 160 minutes of music a night, 5 nights a week. So
listen, I don't disagree with you. I think our industry, as far as live performance, has been hollowed out from the inside. And I really think that one of even though the platform of American Idol and these shows are really great for garnering attention and eyeballs, a lot of times these artists who participate in them are just karaoke singers. They haven't had their in-ear monitors cut out 30 minutes into a gig. They haven't had to turn a crowd around who maybe wasn't in the mood to be entertained. Like you've had to think on the fly, adapt on the fly.
I didn't even have monitors until I was like 19 or 20. I didn't know what a monitor was. When I first started, I used to plug whatever mic we had into my amp. So my guitar and mic were in the same amp. So in-ears, I've never used in-ears myself, so I'm not used to it. But I mean, even with that, they're still singing flat with in-ears and coaching. But all that changes. Singers are born. You can't make a singer. They're born. You can improve on it, but singers are born. The way the ear structure, the way stuff comes in. It's like a great athlete. You could never show Michael Jordan or Bobby Hull how to play. You
can make them better, but they have to have some intrinsic ability.
Like Brett Hull was in my brother's golfing club. Okay, he's a great hockey player. His father was a hockey player, and he's also an incredible golfer. So they have that natural athletic ability to start with, and they build on it, and some of it is genetic. So when you see these guys, it's not an accident. It's not an accident I was a singer. I opened my mouth, I could sing. I was on key. I've sat with my brother going like this, slide. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, what's in your ears? Metal? What's going on here? He's just got 10 ears. He's tone deaf. And I'm sitting there, and here's a guy, it's an actor that can do parts, remember lines. But I'm going, when I see you, it's like, and I can sit
he played a singer in the movie Rhinestone with Dolly Parton, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Dolly. But in many ways, that actually would have been a better role for you because you can actually sing. You could have pretended you couldn't sing in the beginning of the movie like he did, but eventually you would have been, knocking it out of the park.
The funny thing is, if you can sing, you can play with someone that can't sing because you can do either or. It's right. It's like, when you see guys that are great athletes, they can make themselves look bad and then all of a sudden turn it on one second. Like you see these hockey players, they could fudge it around out there, but when they put the pedal to the metal, man, bang, they're on it. And that's like, but that's why I think I give my brother credit for doing it. It's such a ridiculous movie, but I like it. I like all his bad movies. I love Death Race 2000. I love those movies like Stop My Mama Shoot, because I know. And he knew he was on a sinking ship, but you got to be professional. You got to finish it out, eh? You know what I mean? I'm sure
his comeback the last few years, especially since the Rocky Balboa movie, really amazing comeback. But it also must have inspired you that maybe to some degree the best days are ahead.
Oh yeah, I was with him. He wanted me with him when we did Rocky Balboa because it was not the same kind of vibe. He had to put his own money in it. Nobody really was into it. Nobody thought he was 60 years old. What is this ridiculous? He's in the ring. And I remember him, again, it comes back to self-belief and work ethic because his career, and that's why I tell a lot of young kids, I said, he was the biggest movie star in the world. And for 10 years, he could barely get a job. So what do you think's going to happen to you? Okay. That's Sylvester Stallone living in a giant mansion, but without being able to get a gig. And all these people that he made in the business and gave chances to went on, not one of them came forward. Not one.
He had to roll the dice on himself in the very end to initiate that comeback. The Expendables, same thing. The reinvigoration of the Rambo franchise. And all of these different franchises, Rocky Balboa being one of them. They all ended up with he had #1 box office movies on opening weekends after people had written him off for more than a decade. So that must, in a way, make you feel like, all right, like maybe there's still something here because it can happen.
I think I subconsciously think about it because that's how my brain works. But Yeah, I mean, he is definitely the comeback kid for sure because he was totally written off. And Burt Reynolds said something, and he was a wonderful guy, Burt. He goes, you know what? I was the biggest movie star for 5 years in the business. I mean, I made people's careers. I helped so many people. He goes, when I got sick and people were saying, oh, he's got AIDS, he's got this. He goes, everyone abandoned me, but Clint Eastwood and Johnny Carson. Everyone and Hal Needham did. But he goes, all my great friends, no one cared. Same thing with my brother. All of a sudden, they just disappear. So without being harsh, and you don't want to be bitter, but you have to understand, it's more about them than you. I mean, so in other words, if you falter, too bad. That's the way it goes. So I tell a lot of the young actors and actresses, I said, you know what? At 19, do you really need a BMW? You're making more
Right.
money a week than my family made in 2 years. Okay. Why don't you
Yeah.
save your money, put your money away, and save it for a rainy day? Ben Franklin.
It's such great advice because you can be so much more bulletproof if you're not crippled by payments.
Oh,
I say this to a lot of young artists I work with too. I'm like, live as meagerly as you can, and then you never have to do something that's bad for your career but good for your pocketbook. You never have to make that decision because those decisions, if you make them early in your career, if you're doing things for money because you're pressured by payments rather than for what would give your art more validity.
right.
If you make a series of those bad decisions in a row, it can finish you.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of a sudden, it's like keeping up with the Joneses. I said, now look what's happening now. This pandemic. The guys that were wise with their money, they're sitting it out. All of a sudden, you've got the new Jaguar, you got the house that you can't afford, you got the kids in private school, and you're not working. All that could disappear like that. I was always frugal. I wasn't cheap, but I was always somewhat frugal because I never had money. So I knew how to kind of stretch it. Now, my brother's wife is worth a bloody fortune because of her home shopping network. I swear to God, she still will go shopping at these, well, not discount places like Marshalls and stuff. She goes, why should I pay $80 for a pair of Nike pants when I can get them over there for $18?
Yeah, I could
She's
get them on
smart.
sale rack for a
And
fourth.
that's the thing I love about women. Women they're much more practical than we are because they're not afraid to sit there and work on the price with somebody. We get embarrassed. They go, no, I want that. They'll wheel and deal. Women are good at that. I mean, in other words, a lot of guys rely on their wives to take care of the bills, to do stuff like that because they're good at that. And they have also that female nesting, protective type vibe where they're protecting the nest. Where we can sometimes be idiots, and I put myself in that same category. I sometimes go, why did I actually buy that? Do I really need another guitar? I played the same 3 guitars. Do I need 40 guitars? But it's a need because I couldn't afford anything when I was a kid. And I always wanted that guitar, but I couldn't. So I have it. And it maybe, I don't know what it is. But as I'm getting older, I'm loosening up on stuff.
But at least it's an asset, and that collection is going to be worth a shit ton one day. So you're buying something that is somewhat of an investment.
I have too much stuff. And the thing about moving, I hate to tell you, I've lived in my house for half my life, 35 years, which is way too long to be in any place. So I'm just looking at all this stuff. And God, how am I going to move all this? I mean, but I'd have to do it piecemeal. I just have to have people come, okay, my brother goes, where do you got to bring the albums? I said, because I don't know, because I've had them for so long. And I like vinyl, you know? And he goes, hey, you got to bring all those books. I got thousands of books. I mean, you're just seeing, this is nothing. I mean, the whole room is lined with, he goes, I mean, my house is built out of books. So in other words, we had an earthquake. Only thing you'd be standing would be the bookshelves. The rest of the house fall apart. Because
and you'd be buried under a couple thousand pounds of books.
Yeah, I'd be buried under Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven. I mean, but the thing is, they've been companions to me. A lot of these books here, I've had since the 70s.
What's the last book you read that wasn't something you'd read before, but that really resonated with you?
God, I have to. I have to think about that. Right now, I'm getting into F. Scott Fitzgerald, Christmas Dream, and I'm getting into Jack London again and stuff like that. Oh, Henry, a lot of the short stories about Henry. I like reading biographies. I have a weird, morbid curiosity in organized crime. I love mafia stuff, even though I could never be involved in it. There's something about it. So this guy went down there and I whacked him out. You know what I mean? There's something dangerous and crazy about it. You know, I don't know why. It's just, you know, some people are like morbidly fascinated with certain things. But I love reading.
Have you ever read any self-help stuff? I mean, all the stuff you're listing off, yeah? And is there anything from that realm that's resonated or helped you?
Wayne Dyer, I knew, and he wrote some of the greatest books, you know.
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yeah, and he was a wonderful man. And the thing is, he became very, very Christian and gave his life over to God later on. He was very spiritual in that sense, and a little different than he was in the beginning. But I found him very effective because what was effective about him is he had a great sense of humor. He was funny. In the beginning, he got a little more serious and morose near the end. You know, he just got really deep into the spirit and Christ and everything, which is okay, which is fine. But I found he was good. I found when I read the autobiography of a yoga, certain things that there is value in that. There's value in meditation. There is value in self-examination, because my brother has just recently, since he moved to Florida, he's a different person. He loves it there. He goes, I will never come back to Los Angeles. For him, it works. First of all, him being a Cancer sign and being on the water is perfect because he's a crab, Cancer crab, right? So he loves it there.
Fellow Cancer over here. I love water too.
Yeah, he loves water. So he's a moon child. So, and his wife's a Leo. I'm a Leo. So for him, he's the type guy who can sit there and putter around the house and not go out. He doesn't. He's very house oriented, and he loves the beach. He has a beach in front of his house, and the ocean. He has a pier. So this is perfect for him. But also, he has started meditating. He goes, it's for him because he's very high strung. It's amazing, and it is amazing for people. Because what we find out is that we don't breathe. Half the time we're not breathing. We're holding our stomach. And like if you start off, you meditate and you breathe and you're all focused and your shoulders are relaxed and everything. Take a picture of that and take a picture of you after a day of being in the real world. Your shoulders are up here. It's called the turtle effect. Because what's a turtle do with stress and everything? Puts his head in the shell.
Covers up.
Yeah, and their shoulders are tight and they're like rigid because it's a self-protection of the craziness that's going on. So
have you heard of Wim Hof? Do you know Wim Hof? So he's from the Netherlands, and he's done all this crazy experimentation with cold water therapy, where he immerses himself in ice cold water and breathes. But he has a great breathing app. It's very simple. You take 40 deep breaths, inhale, exhale, 40 breaths, as deep as you can.
What's his name? Write it down.
Wim Hof, WIMHOF. You're going to love this guy. He climbed Mount Everest in swimming trunks.
Oh man, no, that's
he's just unbelievable. And he's almost your age. I think he's in his 60s.
Here, man.
Yeah, so he's a big proponent of mental toughness, which is why it is the cold water immersion therapy. But this breathing technique is great. It's 40 deep breaths in and out. On the 40th breath, you exhale slightly and hold your breath for as long as you can. And the crazy thing is, I do it. I can hold my breath for 2 to 3 minutes, which I never knew I could do. But when you flood your body with oxygen,
it's amazing.
And then you do a big exhale, and then you repeat that process. So I try and do it 3 times a day. And you're absolutely right. When I do that, it's just like, I just feel so different.
And also, it'll help if you ever
so magical.
You can hold your breath for 3 minutes. So if you ever fall off a ship, you're pretty Aquaman. No, but I agree 100%. I'm going to, because I do cryonics sometimes, where you're in 300 degrees below zero for like 2
Have you
minutes.
done the one over the Beverly Hilton? They've
Yeah,
got a
no,
cryo chamber there.
He's very German, so he has cryonics is interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to go on a date right after that if there's 300 degrees
Minus 300 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about the turtling effect.
Yeah, speak about the minus. Yeah. So, I mean, but it's also good for you. And I believe in that stuff. And, you know, the thing is, maybe I am youthful and maybe I am gregarious in a way because I was always open for trying new things. I knew I had some mental challenges to deal with, but I knew it. So I would try EST. I would try primal therapy. I would try transcendental meditation. I would try stuff because I was in so much agony and pain mentally and spiritually that I knew something was wrong. See, some people don't identify that something is wrong. And there's nothing, because I mean, I got to admit, I was ashamed. You know, you're talking 1960s, you know, when people sent their kids off to war with a handshake. No, people weren't like hugging, hey, bro, what's up, my bad. They weren't like that. So to sit there and tell a guy, you know, you have hair down to here, telling a guy that you're having like all these crazy thoughts and you think you're possessed by the devil, didn't go over big. So you kind of had to do your suffering alone and try to find your own way out. And I do mention that in the documentary. And a lot of people, you know, write to me and said, thank you for doing that, because I've been going through that for years. And I was
and you add that, Frank, to the fact that you're a tough guy, right? And you've got this persona that exemplifies that. And you have had, you know, to the layman person, to the average person, you've had monumental levels of success. And a lot of times what people do is they equate success with happiness, which is such a falsehood.
Well,
and they go, well, how could you be depressed? Look at you. You've done this movie, you've done this, you've done that. And it's that, I think that anticipation of people's judgment that sometimes doesn't allow celebrities, and I'm glad you talk about it openly in your documentary, because you're absolutely right. Mental health is something that we have to be talking about more. But a lot of people judge celebrities, and I think a lot of celebrities then eschew this idea that they need to get help, because they go, they start to judge themselves, right? They go, he said, why am I depressed? Like, I have this, I have that, but that's not it.
It's not it. And you know what? When I was going through that period of my life, you know, on top of it, I got drafted during the Vietnam era. I said, oh God, you know, I grew up in military school, so I knew face movements. I knew all that stuff, you know? So that meant I'd probably be the first one to get shot. Okay. Hey, volunteer for this. Like, hey, can you shoot? Sure. Go. Okay. So, but I knew I mentally wasn't right. I just wasn't right. But if I had to have gone, I would have gone. I mean, I did get drafted. I mean, I was on the waiting list for sure, but I mean, I would have gone. But I knew I wasn't.
Did the war get called off? Why didn't you end up going?
Well, because they had my draft card. In other words, I was in line to go.
Yeah, you were in line.
Yeah, they just didn't call me. I didn't like try to skip to Canada or draft.
Yeah.
But I knew that it would have been pretty bad for me, because I wasn't in the right head and to face that stuff. And so when people do face that, they have to understand, when people do come back with post-traumatic stress disabilities and disorders, it's because you're putting yourself in such a foreign environment of violence and stuff that you've never even witnessed before. So it's when they say war is hell, it is hell. But the thing is, that's why boxing was good for me, because it helped me get out aggressions. Matter of fact, I got boxing punching bags all over the place. I love punching it. You know, I just think of someone, bang, give him a shot right on the chin, you know. But so I'd rather do that than get into a fight with someone at my age on the street. Who needs it? You know, who needs that? But I think all the things I've done have culminated to maybe where I am now. Maybe, you know, I got my aches and pains. Listen, you know, I mean, you work out. I can see you work out. I mean, you get aches and pains. I got shoulder pain. I've got, and I love to shoot archery, so that's a pain in the ass now. But that kind of comes with age. But the things that I'm doing now, like you were saying, breathing, stretching. Now I'm working out with those rubber bands, and that you just have to change up your routine a little bit. You know, I see guys in the gym that are my age. I said, why are you squatting 500 pounds? What for? When are you ever, I'm just doing overhead 300. When are you ever going to lift 200 pounds over your head?
Yeah.
The most thing you'll ever lift will be like a 20 pack of toilet paper on a shelf. from Downey or something. You're never gonna lift 300 pounds. If you're a farmer, the heaviest thing you'll lift is like 35 pounds of bale of hay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but they're all, and Arnold tells me all the time. I said, Arnold, man, I wish my quads were better. I don't know, I'm getting older, my quads. He goes, don't wear shorts. I said, oh, yeah, that's a good way.
That's his advice.
Wear shorts.
He did not tell you to go to the squat rack. He just said, don't wear shorts.
And he tells me all the time, he goes, do not work out heavy. Look at me. And he goes, we worked out too heavy. And later on, boy, that's why all those guys, like wrestlers, they walk around like a broken wagon. Yeah. I mean, their knees are shot, their shoulders are shot. And he says, you know what, just do light stuff, box and bump, hit that bag. And
anything that accentuates mobility.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's yoga, boxing, anything that accentuates movement. I'm a big fan of less weight, more reps, getting the heart rate up, getting a cardiovascular workout while you're lifting some weights, but then also adding some complex movements in there so that you got to stay focused and sharp, and you have to stay nimble, which I'm 45 now. And so, it's not going to get better for me physically. So I know that staying nimble for as long as I can.
I wish I was 45 and could catch up to the group. But no. But I mean, no, that's a whole different world now. I mean, I would not want to be a young guy in the dating world today. I would not, my son is.
Oh, come on, Frank. Frank Stallone on Tinder?
Oh, God, forget it. I talk to a lot of kids, my nieces and stuff like that. It's not like it used to be. Everyone is very prickly. Everyone's very uptight. Everyone's afraid to be photographed. It just goes.
Your nieces do love you, though. It is so cute to see how they interact with you on their socials and on yours. Like they're just crazy about their Uncle Frank. It's so nice to see.
I'm like Uncle Buck. Remember the movie?
Yeah, of course, John Candy.
I'm like a thin version of Uncle Buck, Uncle Skinny, but. Yeah, I think they get a kick out of me a little bit because I just have a different, listen, I mean, they grew up with more, the day they were born, they had more money than I'd ever make in my life. So it wasn't like they grew up on the hard end of the street, you know what I'm saying? But that's just the way it is. I mean, you can't hold that against them. I mean, that's how they were, that's it.
Well, and like we just talked about, money and success doesn't always equate to happiness and fulfillment, right? So
that's what I wanted to get to, Jim. When I was going through those horrible, horrible, horrible times, I mean, I would just pray, God, just take me, get me out of this. It was like,
were you suicidal at all?
No, I don't think I had the courage to do it, but I said, I'm just going to go in the mountains up in the Delaware Water Gap with the snow, with a pack and my Bowie knife. And if I don't come back, I don't care. So maybe in that way, but I wasn't like the guy to sit there and like swallow the barrel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have the courage for that. And I used to sit there, and I still talk to myself sometimes. And thank God no one's around, but I do. And I was saying, like, if I could be the richest man in the world or the happiest man in the world, I said I'd by far take the happiest man in the world, because the happiest man in the world really, in all reality, is the richest man in the world. It's intoxicating. So in other words, if you are the richest man in the world, you really don't have that many roadblocks in front of you because you're pure and you're solid. And all of a sudden people are going, wait, that's impossible. No one's that happy. Yeah, but he is. There are certain people that are. There are certain guys that are yogas, certain people in the arts. They're very centered and they don't sweat the small stuff because it's not about money, because the most miserable people I know in the world are really rich because they don't know if people like them for their money or they like them for what they can get. Me, my brother and I, we had nothing. I came out here in a car with a flannel shirt and hair down to here. And we just were able to just seem to meet people and just people from all walks of life. And there are people that their whole life all was money, 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 money. Okay, now you have all the money, 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 and you're more miserable. Now what do you do?
Right.
Now what do you do?
No matter what your bank account looks like, you've still got to live inside your own head. Right. And I think a lot of people, artists especially, sort of feel like they're going to be happy and fulfilled once they hit certain mile markers and milestones in their life. It's like, once I win this, I'll be happy. Once I achieve this, I'll be happy. And it's like, you have to learn to be somewhat satiated with how far you've come, what you have. And, there's nothing wrong with having goals. You need goals, objectives. You need to be moving forward. But if you're doing it from a place of resentment, not a place of gratitude, it's
And that's all.
it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the long term. It burns you out.
Jim, like in closing up on this, it's been wonderful being with you. But the thing is, at the end of the day, all I've wanted to do is just be out playing and singing. Not asking for much. I don't need, and just to have people have the opportunity, hopefully that this documentary will show, you never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. Guy goes, wow, why come he's not playing? What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But you never know who's watching.
Get the documentary, people. Get it. Stallone, Frank, that is. Frank, thanks for being so gracious with your time. I had you scheduled for an hour. We talked for an hour and 45 minutes. And if it wasn't for you being a busy guy, I could talk to you all day. I always love chatting with you.
What did Billy
Zane?
Yeah, Williams say?
Oh, Billy Williams.
Billy D. And
the guy can talk.
He can talk. And Christopher Frank can talk. So there you go. That sums it up. Jim,
That's true.
Thank you so much for everything, man.
Yeah, you're a gem, my friend.
We'll get out to Canada, eh? And do
I'm hoping so. Yeah, it would be great to get you up here. So if anybody listening is interested in having Frank grace your room, hit me up. We will make it happen. Thanks again, Frank.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.
Take care.